Okay, so you're live.
I'm just waiting for it to come on YouTube. There we are. We're good. We're good.
Live.
Okay, Karen, you're up.
Mm-hmm. So Karen's having some technical sound difficulties right now. We'll give her a second to try and get them worked out.
Karen, if you go to the mic symbol in the bottom left, first of all, if it's not crossed out, but there is like a little arrow. If you hit that, you should be able to select your microphone at the very top. So maybe somehow it got deselected. We can't hear you.
It looks like she's frozen. Probably try to relog in.
Yeah, that's actually what I was just suggesting.
Oh, yeah, where's that?
I can put her in the waiting room.
You're muted, Andrew.
Yep, go figure. Maybe just to open up the meeting and then she can try and log off and log back on or something and get the,
Yeah.
I mean, the picture's fine, I think anyway.
Yeah, could Judy start us and do that? Then we go to the,
Yeah, Judy can move us into executive, that's fine.
yeah.
I don't have the language.
It's printed on the agenda, isn't it?
Yeah, call the meeting
Yeah,
to order and
I'm
then
pulling it up. Just give me a minute.
you got it.
Okay, Karen's joining again. I put her in the waiting room and
So I just read the top part, right?
correct.
From the executive agenda, not the open meeting, the executive.
Right. Should I do it now?
Mhm.
We're good to go?
You want to do it? We live?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order and vote to go into closed session for discussion and or action regarding those items of business exempt from open meetings under the general laws of Rhode Island, RIGL 42-46-5, A1, A2, A4, A8, and A9.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any individuals to be discussed have been notified.
Yes.
Oh, I have to leave, right?
No, I think you're good, Dave.
Oh,
This is the breakout, I believe.
oh, the host is inviting you to join breakout room number 1. I got to join the
We're
breakout.
doing it.
Thank you.
So you're joined too? I think Kathy automatically put us, she takes us. We're like actually just, along for the virtual ride. Okay. There we go. It's more the content tonight than our technical expertise. I wonder if I should do that.
Hi, Kathy.
Hello? Hello? Is anybody there? Hello? Hello? Hello, hello? I'm here.
Hi, Karen.
Yes.
Tony, you're on, so keep your speaker off, right?
Yes. Yep.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Oh, Kathy's not back yet.
No, I'm here. You just can't see me.
Oh, okay. Well, we see a facsimile, actually. Are we live?
Yes, you're live.
Okay. This time, we're returning to open session. And Judy, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To the republic
for which
which
it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There were no votes taken in executive session. I have a motion to seal the minutes of executive session, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Ms. Bonang, any public comment?
Yes, I have 5. Says, Dear Warwick School Committee, please consider this fact. Warwick has an infection rate of 23 per 100,000. That is 0.023%. For argument's sake, let's double that figure for all those asymptomatic people who are not being tested and therefore are not counted as a case. That brings us to 0.046%. That means that 99.96% of Warwick is either COVID-free or they've tested positive in the past 6 days and are in quarantine and on their way to COVID-free. 99.96% of Warwick is COVID-free, yet it's too risky for my child to learn in her ideal learning environment. Do you see my frustration? Kate Mulligan. This letter is in regards to the special education reopening plan for this fall. I was extremely disappointed when the news of the school committee plans to not return to in-person schooling came out. When I heard the school committee had reconsidered their choice and had voted to fulfill their obligation to those that are most vulnerable, it restored my faith a bit. I am writing you now with the information I have just discovered. This plan to serve the most vulnerable does not include my daughter, a first grader on the autism spectrum that has a full IEP with the City of Warwick because she is in a co-taught environment. My daughter, who I watched regress from the first day they closed schools due to the pandemic. I have watched her suffer and be robbed of her education as I had no special services for her and no assistance in teaching her in distance learning. I was even reprimanded with a letter from the principal threatening that my daughter may be held back because we weren't participating enough. We were on that computer every day, and it was a struggle to get her to focus. When asking for assistance, we were told that the teachers had their children to homeschool too. That was my support for my daughter. I am an essential personnel at the hospital. I could not work from home. I did my best. I watched her struggle, and my heart broke in my chest. I watched her social skills diminish that she had worked so hard to gain. I also watched as this state returned children to daycare and summer camps open, while you did not return to ESY services again for the most vulnerable. And also, there has been no spike in cases in children in these programs as they are still intact. I cannot stand by and watch my daughter regress when there is something that can be done, and I believe you can all accomplish this. I understood when the closings first happened. It truly was an emergency. We didn't know what was happening or how to safely proceed. We are now armed with information and should be ready to move forward. Caitlin and many others are counting on you to continue to prove the amazing education I have seen given by the teachers and administration thus far to both my children. I have up until now sung the praises of the service and dedication of the Warwick school system. I'm asking you to please address this issue for all special education students to be included in this plan, as I feel this is a major disservice to my daughter, and I'm sure many like her. Please feel free to reach out to me. She does give her phone and email anytime. Sarah Taylor. Dear school committee members, this letter is being written on behalf of the 22 kindergarten teachers who wrote to you on August 20th, asking for your support in not sending the kindergarten students into vets as proposed by the administration. Putting these young learners into a middle school that is not appropriate for them and that will house over 750 people is not in their best interests. Thank you for your vote to put the students and teachers' safety as the priority. The governor has implemented walkthroughs, which are supposed to be indicators of safety in each building. However, the walkthrough team came in and out of a school within 20 to 30 minutes, visiting a limited number of classrooms and the nurse's office. This walkthrough should not be considered a legitimate indicator of the safety of air quality, ventilation, distance between desks, seats at tables, etc. Dr. Thornton has publicly stated succinctly why you, the school committee, voted the only way possible. Immediately following the vote, kindergarten teachers began working on distance learning plans. As a group, we self-initiated collaborative planning via Google Meets, as well as created a Google Classroom to share resources and to organize and plan for distance learning. With deliberation, diligence, and commitment, we as a team will make the distance learning experience a positive one for our precious kindergarten children. Our plan is to continue this grade level collaboration all year. On August 27th, 8 of 32 kindergarten teachers were asked by administration to be on a kindergarten committee to decide how to move forward and educate our case students. We respectfully request that all kindergarten teachers be included in any further discussion about any aspect of kindergarten education this year. We are working together as a team and we want to work with administration. We have received little guidance as to what our expectations are for distance learning. We have also discovered that there are discrepancies between individual schools regarding time requirements for daily kindergarten schedules. We realize that administration is concerned with the lack of available Chromebooks for incoming kindergarten students. However, whether the students are at home or in school in a hybrid model, this Chromebook situation remains unchanged. Isn't it in the best interest of students and teachers to put health and safety first and foremost? We are diligently assembling packets to either supplement distance learning or be used until devices are one-in-one for all students. We are ensuring that their education continues during this delay in receiving technology for all of them. We realize that this is not an ideal learning situation for our kindergartners, but until the safety of all can be ensured in a classroom setting, we continue to ask that you hold steadfast to your previous vote and keep those young learners out of debts. Thank you for your time and dedication in providing the safest learning environment for all Warwick students. Now more than ever, the school committee, administration, and teachers need to work in harmony to make this school year a positive and successful one. Together, we will get through this difficult time and come out a strong, unified team supporting Warwick students. In solidarity, Diana Wade, Warwick Neck, Joan Wilkinson, Holloman, Lori Sheridan Park, Christine Harden Sherman, Lauren Rooney Norwood, Joan Mullen Park, Dorothy Carlotti Grande Hoxie. To the members of the school committee, you were voted, excuse me for a second. You were voted into your positions to represent the community of Warwick. The majority vote for full distance learning takes away the choice that every family should be allowed to make for their children. It is not representative of the community. Every child in the state of Rhode Island can opt for distance learning or some form of in-person learning, whether it is full or partial. Warwick families cannot. Families should have the opportunity to make the appropriate decision for their children, however they see fit. Districts that will begin the school year with virtual learning have a plan to phase in students by October 13th for in-person. When can families expect some form of in-person learning in Warwick? It is unacceptable to deny the youngest children going into kindergarten who need classroom support in person. If a newer building allows for proper space and safety measures, their families should have the right to make the choice for in-person learning. Please consider the children and their families that need and want this. Thank you to the teachers and administrators that have worked hard to consider the youngest children in your plans. I hope the school committee will do better in representing the community they are here to serve and give families the opportunity to make the decisions that best fit their children. Sincerely, Maya Sherman. Dear members of the Warwick School Committee, a few weeks ago when you made the decision to begin the school year virtually, you did so because the administration had presented to you facts about the inadequacies in the ventilation systems in the majority of the school buildings in Warwick. Subsequently, you voted to use the 3 buildings that do have the proper ventilation systems and provide in-person instruction to special populations of students. I am writing to let you know that whether the instruction this fall is virtual or in person, the members of the Warwick Teachers Union will continue to provide the high-quality education that we have always provided to Warwick students. I want to remind you that in the spring, the members of the Warwick Teachers Union, the classroom teachers, special educators, guidance counselors, occupational therapists, physical therapists, social workers, psychologists, speech therapists, nurse teachers, GBP coordinators, librarians, reading specialists, math interventionists, elementary itinerary teachers, and technology integration specialists put their hearts and souls and time and energy into ensuring that all our students continue to receive the best education that they could have possibly received, and that they continue to receive all of the service and social and emotional support that they deserve. Nothing about virtual learning is perfect or ideal. There is no substitute for in-person, in-school education. However, because teachers and support professionals had already built relationships with their students, the transition to virtual learning was as smooth as it could possibly be. And by all accounts, Warwick excelled in virtual learning. Now the challenge for those who will be teaching virtually will be to build those relationships without the benefit of having been together with their students in the schools. Also, for those of you who think virtual teaching is somehow easier than in-person teaching, I must disabuse you of that notion. Teaching, whether in-person or virtual, requires a vast expenditure of energy, emotion, and of time beyond the hours of the school day and days of the school year, and teachers perform their work often at the expense of time spent with their old children, elderly parents, or other family members in need. I also want to call your attention to the perils that the teachers who will be returning in person to teach the special populations will face. Although Drumrock, The Warwick Area Career and Technical Center and Warwick Veterans Middle School may have the proper ventilation systems, there are safety concerns beyond the fresh air exchange rate. For example, if individuals do not wear masks and sneeze on someone else, the ventilation system will not matter. The teachers and support professionals who will be entering these buildings need the assurance that everyone, including students, will wear masks, that they will have the appropriate personal protective equipment, that all people, including students, will stay home if they are sick, and that the administration will take seriously any and all concerns or issues that they bring to their attention. Teachers want to teach. Throughout the summer, numerous teachers have voluntarily served on the myriad committees that their district assembled to devise its reopening plan to submit to the Rhode Island Department of Education. Furthermore, even after the district submitted the plan on July 17, 2020, the teachers and support professionals in the Warwick Teachers Union continued to meet voluntarily with administrators to plan for a smooth start to the school year. Whether the instruction is virtual or in person, the members of the WTU will continue to rise and meet the challenge of providing a quality education during a pandemic. Finally, I would like to remind some members of the school committee that without the teachers and support professionals of the Warwick Teachers Union, you would not have any teaching or learning. All else is superfluous. Sincerely, Darlene Necco, Warwick Teachers Union President. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Moving on, H, recommended action, approval of minutes of public sessions. August 11, 2020, move approval.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of warrants for September 8th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Number 3, announcements, personnel as presented.
Madam Chair, I have personnel this evening.
Okay,
First, Madam Chair, I have the appointments for you. First, I'd like to announce the appointment of Brittany Holleran, 50% elementary phys ed health teacher at Warwick Neck, Hoxie, Holloman, and Park, pending national BCI and state BCI, effective August 28, 2020. Next, I'd like to appoint Charlene Christina, 50% literacy teacher at Veterans, effective August 28, 2020. Next, we have Beverly Smith, 40% literacy teacher, Warwick Current Tech Center, effective August 28, 2020. Next, we have Sean Edge, computer science teacher, Veterans, pending national and state BCI, August 28, 2020 for the effective date. Next, we have Dawn Manchester, instructional integrationist, Title I schools, August 28, 2020 effective date. Next, we have Katie Myers, elementary teacher, grade 3, Warwick Neck, September 4th, 2020 for the effective date. And lastly, my pleasure to appoint Tim Kane, interim director, Career and Tech Center, effective this evening. So Madam Chair, those are my appointments. No vote needed, but I'm happy to appoint those folks tonight.
thank you, Superintendent.
Next, Madam Chair, I have retirements, which would require a vote from the committee. First, I have Patricia Stanley, kindergarten teacher, Norwood. Patricia had 27 total years and 25 years in Warwick. Effective date, August 31, 2020. Have a vote for that retirement, please, Madam Chair.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you. Our next retirement is Paul Gallo, head custodian, Cedar Hill, 30 years in district, and that date would be December 31 for the effective date. Have a vote, Madam Chair?
Thank you very much. I move approval.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you, Superintendent.
Last retirement, Susan Vitale, Human Resources, 22 years, effective November 20, 2020.
Thank you, Superintendent. I move approval.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
I'd like to wish all those folks well. Next, we have resignation. Madam Chair, first resignation, we have Julia Deandra, 50% fashion merchandising, 50% business, Current Tech Tollgate, effective date August 19 of 2020, and she served for 20 years, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent. I move approval for,
Second.
Andrew. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you. Next, we have David Inman, 18 years, Madam Chair, Social Studies at Tollgate. Effective date will be September 4th of 2020.
Thank you, Superintendent. I move approval.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you.
Lastly, Madam Chair, David Tober, 21 years in district, principal, middle school at Veterans. Effective date September 13, 2020.
Thank you, Superintendent. I move approval.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Madam Chair, the last category, the unrestricted leave of absence, we have one, Kimberly Markarian, elementary art teacher, Hoxie Greenwood. I would need a vote for that, Madam Chair.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all for personnel.
Thank you very much. Moving on to I, adoption of policies. 1, EEAA, walkers and riders. Second reading, Dr. Cecil.
Yeah,
Good evening.
it is the second reading. All we did was to, add or change the amount of mileage for the students. Get it right out here. We changed from 3/4 of a mile to 1 mile for the grades K through 5. Middle school went from 1 3/4 miles to 2 miles, and senior high grades 9 through 12 went from 2 miles to 2 1/4 miles. Those are the changes. This would be second read and adoption if the committee so pleases.
Thank you, Dr. Cecil. Is there any discussion? If not, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it.
Done. Thank you.
Thank you. New business. Discussion action, athletics director contract addendum. Dr. Thornton?
Madam Chair, I believe as discussed in executive session, I would ask for an affirmative vote in open on that contract.
Thank you. Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Aye.
Next, discussion action, interim director of Warwick Area Career and Tech contract.
Madam Chair, the same discussion, I would ask for approval and open based on our conversation.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Discussion update, reopening of Warwick schools. Dr. Thornton.
Madam Chair, if I could put number 3,
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
after number 5, I believe, that'll flow better for the night.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Discussion update number 4, special programs move. Mr. Ferrucci and Mr. Oliver.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Oliver, Madam Chair.
Maybe we'll discuss the first program. Yeah. Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
So we have started our moves 2 weeks ago. Everything's on target and scheduled to finish up this week. Everything's moving very smoothly with no issue as of date. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for Mr. Oliver?
Madam Chair, I have one or maybe two.
Mr. Foster?
Thank you. Mr. Oliver, thank you for the update. When you say everything's going to be all set, so did we have to construct any decompression rooms?
We're in the process of that right now. There has to be some purchases of matting to come to compliance with fire code.
All right, so that's in the process, and is that going to come before us, or is that would that fall under the thread? Would that be on a consent agenda item?
It's still in the process. We're trying to figure out the exact size of the rooms. This way we have exact measurements of what we're going to need the matting for.
Okay, all right, I just remember from last time, we may have to expedite that matting if
Mr. Testa,
No.
if I
Yes.
may.
Yep.
And when we did it the last time, we had to go out to bid, which does slow down the process significantly.
Thank you, Dr. Conley. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 5, discussion update, ride building walkthroughs. Mr. Thornton and Mr. Oliver, Dr. Thornton and Mr. Oliver.
Thank you. Good evening. So I thought I would have a discussion this evening with my 4 team leaders on the walkthroughs to truly give the committee an understanding, and the public for that matter, an understanding of what the walkthroughs were. So to start things off, just a few opening thoughts, then we'll get into the conversation. First, you all have at your places a copy of the form. It looks like this, and this will be posted on our website with the completed documents later this week. You can see on the form for each building you fill out, you have the inspector name, and you have the folks present at the inspection, and then you go through the 38 some odd indicators. So in Warwick, being as large as we are, we actually had 4 inspection teams come, and I actually had the luxury of having 4 excellent individuals, all with knowledge of HVAC and buildings, leading these. Team 1, Mr. Ferrucci, and we'll talk about later what schools he covered. Team 2 was Mr. Oliver, who covered a section of the city. Team 3, Mr. Acuti, and Team 4, Mr. Gothberg. So with those 4 leaders, the state did send teams of folks to our school. In all, the visits took 3 to 3.5 hours. We covered 19 locations. It was pretty quick. So with that, I thought what I would do is, as you have the sheet in front of you at your places, I would start a conversation with the 4 leaders and take you through some of these in more depth, and some of them I'll go quickly through. So I thought that would be a way to kind of illustrate what this was and what it wasn't, and then certainly we'll take your questions. So with that, I will step off camera and talk to the 4 individuals. So gentlemen, you have your notes in front of you. As you know, you took notes alongside of the inspector's notes, right? So we actually, when we post on the website later this week, we're going to post actually the notes from the inspector alongside of your observations from each building. So we'll have that for the public. So in terms of number 1 and number 2, number 1, does the school have a plan to screen all entrance into the building? Number 2, all individuals are wearing a cloth face covering. In my walk with Mr. Oliver, I didn't see anything really of note there. Any remarks on that, or is that just I should say on this form it's a yes, a no, or an in progress, right? So those first 2 indicators, anything come up for those 2?
No, they were.
Mr. Oliver, you talking.
Sorry about that. When they talked about the screening at the entrances, they asked if there was going to be people taking temperatures, things of that nature. I believe you had told the inspector, Dr. Thornton, that the district had a plan in place for self-monitoring and submitting their findings.
Right. Now, I know number 3, at least in my group, caused some conversation. Number 3 reads as follows: all individuals are maintaining physical distancing of 6 feet at all times to the extent feasible. And Mr. Ferrucci last week had a quote that's still with me today. Mr. Ferrucci, what did you say about that?
Feasible does not mean safe.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, it's feasible if there's few enough students in the building and we can keep them separated. But most of our school activities, putting the numbers of students that we have in the classrooms, having them to go down corridors, especially at the secondary level, you couldn't keep them apart 6 feet. And does that necessarily translate into being a safe environment? And our definition is no.
Right. So I think a lot of our conversations, we had a discussion, you had notes, I think you included on that. Any other observations, number 3? You don't have to have one, but I'm just wondering if anything else came up on number 3, or I'll go on to number 4. Okay. Number 4, strategies such as staggered passing times or movement protocols are in place to minimize hallway congestion. Now, that one I can start and you guys can fill it in. I know certainly at the elementary level, we can have a staggered passing time conversation. 5th grade, 4th grade, we can certainly mitigate travel in hallways. But having been a high school person myself, talking to Mr. McCaffrey and others and all of you, I don't have any knowledge of how you can mitigate high school passing time, certainly in a full in-person return. Did that come up in your conversations at all?
Yeah, it came up in, then when we were at vets. It came up because she wanted to know, the inspector wanted to know, could it be done? And we talked about how it's potentially you could do something in junior high, but talking about senior high, there was no way we could fathom how to do it.
Okay.
Myself at Tollgate, I actually had somebody who was familiar with the school, made notes that it was in progress because it needed to be addressed. However, the note that was attached to her report is impossible to stagger and keep in classrooms, recognizing the fact the high school students with their schedules, you must move the populations around and they're mixing within the confines of the school.
And that's
So
not the
it's
inspector's
impossible.
notes?
That was in the inspector's notes.
Number 5 and 6, I want to bundle together if I can. Number 5, does each classroom or work area have soap and water? Number 6, do these areas have hand sanitizer? Mr. Oliver, can you explain how that went? The soap and water conversation versus hand sanitizer?
So the soap and water conversation, you know, obviously that most of our classrooms do have sinks, but there are classrooms that don't. They asked if there would be hand sanitizer provided for those areas that don't have a sink. And I stated to them, yes, we're going to put hand sanitizer in every classroom, not just the ones without the sinks.
And they have a metric of 60%. What metric are we at? What's our number?
I believe we're at 78%.
Thank you. Number 7, does each classroom or work area have access to cleaning or disinfecting supplies? Now, I know we talked about that a little bit. That almost implies people are going to clean in their rooms. So how do we kind of address that? And I actually back up. Sometimes the way these are written, it almost walks you into a statement that has to be discussed, but that's always not the case, right? So how'd that go, Phil?
Well, our policy here is we're not going to be leaving any chemical supplies in classrooms to be accessible to the children. All the materials will be handled by the custodians. They'll be brought into the room by the custodians and used, and then taken out of the rooms. So that's our plan. We're not going to leave anything within reach.
Okay, thank you. Number 8, does each class, Tony, go ahead.
Thank you. Concurrent with that, the conversations I had with my inspectors, they fully understand the need for the custodial staff to manage those supplies. So having access became a definition conversation for us. So we have the materials, but it has to be applied by staff, which led us into a whole conversation about how's your staff going to apply it. And we had conversations about under the CDC guidelines that the district would need additional staff to do those types of services, and that we acknowledge the fact that the number of staff that were needed were not available, and thus it would become a problem in the safety of the building.
And can you just detail that briefly? The memory serves, our cleaning protocol had 86 folks we're looking to hire to do the cleaning for the COVID situation. The last check, we had 15 applicants. That's still where we are?
Yep.
And even to simplify that, it's tough to pick just 86 people in the district. So the simplicity of our conversation, we did our walkthrough. We got into Cedar Hill Elementary School, and it was very easy for folks to understand that we only had one in the morning and one in the afternoon. But because of the guidelines, we were needing to add 2 more custodial staff in the morning to take care of the sanitizing of the high traffic areas, the bathrooms based on CDC guidelines, et cetera. And then in the evening, adding 2 more to the staff, where we're actually going to use the guns. So we have the spray guns, which is its own process after the normal cleaning takes place.
How many guns do we have?
I believe it's 1 per building, if I'm not mistaken.
20 spray
So
guns.
we have 20 guns, but the amount of time necessary for that process to take place on top of what the normal process of just getting trash out the door and those kinds of things, the team was easily able to digest the fact that, yes, adding 4 more staff at Cedar Hill seemed appropriate. Then when we said, well, there's 20 other buildings, so do the math, I think it was more digestible to understand the impact of building by building when they saw it.
Thank you. Moving on to number 8, does each classroom or work area have access to cloth face covering? So we have a supply of that?
Correct.
Yes.
So that's a yes for all of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, nothing really to talk about there. Number 9, the layout of each classroom maximizes distancing between seats. And I know some buildings were not set up yet, but it was a work in progress in many cases.
Yeah, it was in progress in all schools, but a couple of schools where they were set up. And the person doing the walkthrough seemed to think that 12 would be the maximum amount of seats, 12 to 15, that you can put in a classroom.
So
because
12
of social distancing.
So 12 would go back to, we submitted the hybrid model, right? And that would be, if class is 25, you have 12 or 13 in a room, and that would be what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay. Number 10, communal spaces have been closed or a plan exists. I think it's pretty universal, right? We, in our model, we're closing those cafeterias, right, those common areas? Okay. Number 11, does the school, here's an operative word now, have a central, remember the word central, HVAC system that's operating using a MERV 13 filter? Can you explain how central is important to that conversation? One of you HVAC gentlemen.
Central air is a system that brings in fresh air, usually through a rooftop unit. And if we use vets as an example, we have rooftop units, ductwork, refrigerant lines that run to individual units within the classrooms. Fresh air is brought in, it's chilled or it's heated, and then it's filtered in multiple locations. Not only is it filtered at the roof at a couple locations, but it's also filtered once it hits the room, both in supply and return. So
who has central air in Warwick? Central HVAC, excuse me.
Vets, CTC, and Drum Rock.
Thank you. So these were no's for all your trips except for those three. These were no's, right?
Correct.
12, are the HVAC dampers operating correctly and open to allow as much outdoor air as possible? I know, Kevin, in your discussion, you talked about that a little bit. Can you elaborate on how that played out?
Yeah, we talked about the dampers operating correctly. Based on the age of our unit ventilators that are in our buildings, they operate. Sometimes they have issues and you can't get the proper replacement parts because of their age. Obviously, it's a age thing. The older they are, the more things break on them, so we have to continually repair. You know.
Can I ask you, what happens to the dampers when they do work when it gets cold out?
So when they run on outside air temperature, so when it gets cold out, the damper closes, so it doesn't allow fresh air into the classroom or very little fresh air in the classroom. So that in turn takes the 4 to 5 times of air transfer or change and makes it nil.
So at veterans, the new central system, that wouldn't be a problem, but in these systems, you're closing, it's colder, you're not getting the air exchange.
Correct.
Right. Fresh air is preheated at vets.
Okay. 13, are the HVAC filters changed on a regular basis?
Yes, they are.
So that was a yes, I think, for all of you, I believe?
Right.
At least 3 times a year.
Okay. 14, is the HVAC system designed to accommodate the installed filters? We have what, MERV 7s on ours?
Correct.
And I know the rec is MERV 13. Why can't you just put a MERV 13 on a 7 system?
Because the MERV 13 is a tighter filter and it allows smaller particles to be trapped in it. And our equipment can't handle pulling fresh air through the filters, and it would reduce the air change on that also.
Okay. 14 is kind of related. Is the HVAC system designed to accommodate the filters installed? I think it's a yes. We have 7s on a system that's designed for 7, right? We're not overloading the system. 15, has the HVAC system been balanced? What's that mean for the layman, a balanced HVAC
Balanced,
system?
it's a balance between return and supply, so that you get one's not overtaking the other. You're not taking too much out or bringing too much in, overloading the supply return one way or the other. With our unit ventilators, there is no real balancing. The only systems that can be balanced are the 3 with the central HVAC systems.
Thanks. 16, has the HVAC been tested recently? How did that question play out?
Well, we test all our equipment, our heating equipment, ventilation equipment that we have in place. We do preventative maintenance, change belts, filters, things of that nature. So we test periodically through the course of the year to make sure everything's running properly.
Thank you. 17, are the HVAC vents free from obstruction? What's an obstruction?
Vegetation outside,
Closed dampers.
You know.
So how'd that question get answered?
Books on top of.
Books and furniture, blocks.
So books and furniture on top. Okay. 18, I know this was a lot of conversation in the group I was in. Does each room have sufficient ventilation to accommodate 4 to 6 air changes per hour? Now, why is the 4 to 6 the operative number here in this survey or this?
That's
inspection?
CDC guidelines, I believe.
Okay, so how'd that question in your group, Tony, you can answer number 18?
Clearly, I was fortunate enough to have 2 of the 3 that had the HVAC systems, that being the Drum Rock School we're going to be using for preschool and the Career and Tech Center. Those 2, of course, yes, because we have the systems. The other schools, no. They don't have that capability. There was discussion about trying to put fans in, which led us down a whole path.
Fans are later. Hold that fan.
So I'll hold that fan, but that's where we started. It wasn't a resolution.
So it's a no.
So it's a no.
18, how'd you go?
So I explained to the inspector that our systems cannot change that air over as requested based on the type of equipment we have. It's just by the age, and that's why we're replacing or scheduling to replace everything.
That was a no.
No.
Phil, what was your answer? Your team?
Most of my schools had unit ventilators, the old system, some baseboard heating. None of my schools had central HVAC, of course, had mostly elementary schools.
Right. Did Oakland Beach as well?
At Oakland Beach.
Oakland Beach, single pipe steam?
Yes.
Okay.
And some unit ventilators, the long corridor, those are all unit ventilators, it's a combination there.
Okay, and 18 for you?
Yeah, it was, I had vets, so that was easy, but the rest are either unit ventilators, steam, baseboard. The other issue is, people look at cabinet heaters and say, well, there's a unit ventilator, and it's not an inside wall, it's not a unit ventilator, it's just a convection cabinet heater. That's all it is with a fan in it.
19 is kind of redundant, but I'll agree with you. Does each room have enough clean air from the central HVAC system, right? So I think that's a no, right?
Yep.
No.
Question 20, does each room have its window open if feasible? Now, how did that play in your groups, the window conversation?
So we have operable windows in our classrooms. Some classrooms don't have any windows. But when it starts to get cold out, it's not going to be feasible to have a window open when it's 10 degrees outside.
Why not?
Because you have a room with the cold air blasted, and you can have it freeze up, the pipe could freeze. Children sitting near the window, that's not appropriate. Security issues, with the,
Any other window, same thing or different?
For my 2 schools, I actually had interior classrooms. Tollgate High School, 30% of their interior classrooms with no windows available. And at the Windman Middle School, it was 25% of all the classrooms are interior classrooms. They do not have windows available.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Number 21, does each room have fans to improve airflow? I know in my group we talked about fans. Anyone want to start the fan conversation?
We talked about power being a problem. And, it's one thing during the summer to run a few fans to dry the wax or cool a room while somebody's working, but when you have everything else that you're trying to run, computers, Chromebooks, all those things, charging, lithium boards, lights on in every room. We talked about how it's going to overload the system.
I know, I put out guidance a while ago, facilities guidance in COVID. I know on page 6, it talks about potentially using fans, opening window. Page 9 says consult your fire marshal. So I know that has been a discussion point. Did that come up at all in any of the walks?
It did. No. We talked about how, first of all, cords running across the rooms, a trip hazard, it's an egress hazard. Then you talked about doors being open, doors alone. You've penetrated the rated corridor wall.
Can you translate that in English? What's that mean? If all the doors are open and fans are running.
You have, number one, the corridor wall is a rated wall. It's a 2-hour wall. If the door is open, now you don't have that anymore. And if you have a fan in the door blowing in, if by chance there were a fire, now you're creating a chimney effect and you're sucking potential fire and smoke right into the classroom and causing a bigger problem.
Okay. Anything else different than that?
No, it was all similar conversations with the different inspectors.
Okay. 22 now, I want you to mark that school committee down for your reference. We're going to talk about that next, I think, after we're done this conversation. It talks about portable HEPA filters to supplement airflow. So how did that play out in your group?
played out that none of my schools had purchased the HEPA filters yet for the classrooms yet.
So,
Yes, I think we're all in progress, and I think, as you'll hear school committee next, one of our discussion points for the future is we think this is a viable mitigation solution to help us in Warwick. So we'll talk more about that next, number 22. Number 23, the school has restricted the use of any classroom workspace that doesn't have access to fresh air.
yes.
It's a yes for all of you, thank you. 24, the schools developed, now the next 24, 25, 26, 27, and 27 and 28, they're all kind of bundled. So everyone want to take that as a group?
It was, well, yes,
All yeses
oh, yes.
for all of you? Right, isolation location and just administration of anyone COVID positive. So, okay, so nothing to go further on that. Number 30, signage. I think we saw signs going up, some are in progress. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
It's in progress. What we reported out is that all signage will be in place before September 14th. Even though we're not having students go to the schools, all the signage will be in the building.
Okay, 31, measures to promote physical distancing, tape on floors, signs on walls.
Work in progress.
Work in progress? Okay. 32, students' belongings are separated. I think we discussed no locker use in all our tours. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. Number 33, does the school have a plan to screen all entrance into the building for sign incidents of COVID? Yes. 34, face coverings, student staff that need them. We have plenty of face coverings, I know, from our census. Anything else? I don't want to go through every one of these. Any of the last 4 or 5 stand out to you want to talk about?
Just in our area, lines 35 and 36, does each classroom and work area have a plan to increase routine cleaning? The answer is the plan is to have the staffing to do it. The problem is we don't have the staff to do it. So we have extensive conversations that the plan calls for something. Until we can meet our plan, we don't believe it's safe to open schools.
Okay. I know earlier, Kevin, we didn't really talk about this. We can touch on it now. We have a product that kills COVID. Can you explain how that works and how long it takes to kill it?
So currently the chemical we use in district, it has a kill rate of 10 minutes. So if what that means, it has to remain wet for 10 minutes in order for it to kill COVID properly.
Okay, so I know earlier, and certainly in the high school realm, talking about things like passing time. So if we're gonna have passing time from chemistry to English, you're gonna have a longer passing time to facilitate your team cleaning those surfaces.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I think some folks had talked to me about it being as simple as maybe, teacher sprays down desks, student comes in with a paper towel, wipes down his or her chair, and then you're done. So you're saying that would not be the protocol?
No, it would not, because chemical reactions to people, to make sure they have their proper PPE on, that the people have to be trained properly in it with using the chemical.
Okay. So, committee, those, that's a walkthrough. I felt I wanted to give you a little more detail so you could hear, a little bit of the conversation. I think, to us, the takeaways really are our next agenda item in terms of looking at remedies. We obviously, want to get back to school. We are working hard to get back to school, and we have some thoughts on that we can share next. Before we go on to that, any questions on inspections?
Madam Chair, I have some questions if no one
Mr.
else does.
Testa?
Thank you. Dr. Thornton, Mr. Rakut, everyone else in that room, picture's too small, I can't see, thank you. I was at the Pilgrim one as an observer on Friday. And I'm glad you decided to do this, to go through some of the more pertinent questions that were on what originally were inspection checklists and then just became checklists. I would note that many of those questions refer to process, not buildings. And at the core of this is whether or not your buildings can comply with the state's guidelines. So the fact that you have a process in place, you have a safe room for someone, that's all fine and dandy, but that doesn't change, that doesn't create windows and windowless classrooms, nor does it create 4 to 6 air exchanges an hour, right? So if you really, you'd strip half these questions away if this was really about your building. But to some of your points, chemicals in kids, to be honest with you, I hadn't thought of that. And I know other districts are doing that. I think the private schools are doing that too. So, you know, I mean, public schools, there's still a liability issue that's hanging over everybody's head because nobody at the federal or state level has gotten off their rear ends to decide what do we do for liability if, God forbid, somebody gets sick from a chemical, you know, a cleaning chemical or a disinfectant. So let alone if someone gets the virus. The custodial staff needs, I think, you know, if I look way down the end of the road here, we could end up with almost like a Sophie's choice, because if, for the sake of discussion that you're going to have later about HEPA filters, let's just say we can get rooms with the air exchanges or air purified enough to put people back in DL, and that would be my hope. If we don't have enough staff to clean per the guidelines, then personally, I'd want some guidance from someone at the state to say, yeah, it's okay to run with 30% of the staff you would really need to clean. I'm not sure or very confident that the state would say, yeah, it's okay, go ahead and do it. I think
on that point, I think in the plans I have read or folks I've talked to, I don't get any hard and fast metric on square footage equating to like extra cleaners for COVID cleaning. Mr. Oliver and his team has done that. For example, Pilgrim High School has 4 more cleaners for the day, given its 225,000 square feet of Pilgrim. I don't think the state has a metric on adding cleaners for this.
so. That would be interesting, right? So then it's up to the school committee to decide, you know, how they want to go, you know, how they would want to proceed. You know, as far as fans, I think that was addressed very clearly when it comes to the fire hazard. Never mind the tripping or the blocking of ingress and egress, but I'm just to Mr. Gothray's point, if you had a fire, you created a wind tunnel and you'll have those flames going so fast. So I think HEPA filters is really the only way that's feasible out of this. And then the last thing, Mr. Oliver, you mentioned that the chemical we're using, the 10-minute dwell time, and I'm not going to even put a lesson here, but in my business, we do disinfecting versus sanitizing. And disinfecting, which is what we're using, has a 10-minute kill claim because the product, a disinfectant can make a COVID kill claim. People say, well, I'll use a Purell sanitizer. Sanitizer doesn't make 100% kill claim. It can only do 99 point something. And that's by FDA guidelines. So you have to use a disinfectant, which I believe is the guideline. So all disinfectants have a longer dwell time than a sanitizer. A sanitizer, you can spray, leave it for a minute, wipe it off. But most sanitizers can't make a COVID kill claim. So, and I would wonder what other districts are using and if the product they're using actually has the COVID kill claim. So in the end, when I looked at the checklist and I sat through and walked through with you guys as an observer, you know, I had a suspicion of how the questions were tailored. And I think they were tailored to get a specific result. I don't think the questions are really tailored for a district to say, yes, our buildings are ready and can accommodate. You know, when all of your questions about ventilation are turned with heating, HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, when 17 of our 20 buildings just have the HV part of that equation, you have to take issue with the premise of the question, in my opinion. So I thank you for everything that you've done and all the results. And I believe we're going to make these public, right?
Yeah, my plan would be once we get the final docs to the committee, we make them public this week.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Number 3, discussion update, reopening of Warwick schools. Dr.
Leads us to the next conversation. Talking to our team, talking to the districts, HEPA filters really is what we're looking at in terms of you know, air quality, air exchange. The question is, you know, towards the balance of finding the right unit that doesn't have too many watts or amps to overload the system. And like I said, I have a team of people here that know a lot more about that than I do. But we are working very hard each day to bring to the committee on the 14th of September some more refined thinking on a HEPA filter solution. So let me just kind of lay it out to you. So it could be, you know, in some buildings, we could have a faster remedy than other buildings. Could be more power needed of the building. you know? So it might not be, we would have the ability to open all of the schools at the very same time. It could be, it's, you know, some schools come online at different times. But HEPA is only half the equation. To Mr. Fritsch's point, the other half the equation is staffing to safely clean the building. So we think, at least on the first part of the equation, the HEPA equation, we think we can bring in some more refined thinking. We're not going to be talking about box fans. We're not talking about tents. But we think HEPA filters are a viable solution. In terms of funding, as you will hear or have heard, the Fed did release their second round of CARES funds. We have around 1.8 million, and that must be written for with Ann's help by September 30th. It must be spent by December 30th. So HEPA filters are an excellent, you know, investment in that piece. In terms of HEPA, also in the long term, if we did go this route, HEPA filters actually also help us with a regular cold and flu season as far as scrubbing the air. It's not a one-time investment for COVID, but really a long-term investment. So, gentlemen, any thoughts or discussion points on this HEPA question or HEPA item?
I think that, given the pandemic, that there probably was an investment in these types of systems, trying to reduce the amperage requirements, because early on, we were getting feedback that we needed 5, 6, 8 amps to run these types of devices, which would have put us in a need of having 200 amps going into a school. So I think right now, I'm more cautious about it and saying it's possible, and that's why we're exploring it, and we'll get back to you with the evidence that we find over the next week or so.
Also, committee, I would add, this also goes hand in hand with the bond conversation, November 4th. We have a bond, as you know, $6 million, where we would fix all the elementaries, new HVAC, just like veterans, right? That's where we're at. This is decades in the making. Just the pandemic really exacerbated this whole conversation. So we had our long-term plan is the bond November 4th, right? Fixing the schools, and the short-term, a big boost could be helped through the HEPA conversation. Any questions from the committee on that? We'll bring you more detail on the 14th on this.
Cornell?
So I just had a question. Yes. So how long in entirety did the walkthrough take?
Can someone hear him?
Not well.
I think he asked how long did the walkthroughs take?
Oh, they could vary. I mean, they were pretty quick. To point out, driving from spot to spot. First one took the longest because we had to kind of unpack all of our discussions. So Pilgrim High School is my first one, Mr. Oliver. 40 minutes. Yeah. That was the long one. After that, they get shorter. But we would do our sit down, do the checklist. Then we'd see a sample classroom or two, couple of common areas, look for the isolation room. And then any outstanding questions, then move on. It wasn't looking at a lot of classrooms, a couple of classrooms, looking for a sample classroom, what it would look like set up, right? Looking at a couple of common areas, and that's a bathroom, possibly. That was pretty much it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions?
Madam Chair, I do.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. I just want to I think for the public, because you guys explained it, I get it, and I think most people do, but this is essentially a question. I think we're starting from the fact that fans are out, tents are out, HEPA filters are really only way out of this thing. So having said that, they all use electricity. So, and Dr. Thorne, step in anytime and correct me if I'm wrong. This is really, in essence, a math equation. It's a math equation per building as to how many amps we have available to use, right? Even after we unplug some stuff and everything else, like Apollo 13. And then it's how much draw do these HEPA filters take? So how many can we put in each building? And that's essentially it. Because at that point, then we'll know how many classrooms we can use, or how many rooms we can use in a building, or how usable a building is, right? And then, and I hope this works, because I do think that we need to do everything we can to try to get back into the building, but I don't think we rush back into the building. So if this works, then we know how many classrooms. Then it's a question of, okay, how many students can we accommodate? And then I think at some point we have to survey parents again to say how many people are willing to put their kids in school once we have all of these other parameters or all these other issues worked out and laid out. So it's very clear for everybody to see. It's very transparent. And then we have to figure out, okay, can this work? Right? Because that's how I see it.
With my team's thinking, our best thought still is the hybrid model, where you would bring back just a proportion or a subset. So if you have 25 in a room, you have 12 in a room. That way you keep the social distancing with the HEPA, right? And you have all those pieces in place. I don't think I could ever recommend to a full return ever in a pandemic.
I would agree. And I think a hybrid model is the way it was laid out. If, for the sake of discussion, if half the students come back to school in a hybrid model, then that's a different demand, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, on classroom space than if everybody came back in a hybrid model, right? So there's a lot of moving parts to it, and it's your job to figure out how it all works. My point is, assuming that the HEPA filters work as advertised and we can handle the electric draw and the buildings can maintain it, and it does get us in compliance with the state's own guidelines, then I think it's absolutely worth pursuing. And I just want to close by saying, if anybody thinks that you folks aren't working hard or trying to be creative or trying to think outside of the box, they're sadly mistaken. This is not easy, and I understand parental frustration. I do. I'm a parent, so I get it. My daughter distance learned last year towards the tail end of her senior year. I don't want to see us have to do what we did last year to these seniors, to this year's seniors. In a perfect world, we won't have to do that. But again, everybody's working hard and trying to figure out how we make this work. But I think it would be irresponsible if we arrive at the conclusion that we really can't make it work. We can make it work most of the way, but not all of the way. Ultimately, that's on the school committee to determine, do we do that or do we not do that? And I have to tell you that's a hard question. That's a hard question to answer because we all value in-person learning. But if our buildings, if we can't comply with the state's guidelines, then who are we fooling, right? And I'm not into that game at all. So I want to thank you for your work, and I don't think there are any towels lying around that you guys threw in. So I want to thank you for the work that you guys have done and girls have done and are continuing to do. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may make a comment. Madam Chair, if I may make a comment.
Certainly, Mr. Ferrucci.
Thank you. Just to piggyback Mr. Testa's comment, what I wanted to share was my inspection team was pleasantly surprised at the amount of investment that we've done district-wide. They walked in, they commented on the plexiglass that's been installed at the main offices. They commented that we've actually got the isolation rooms earmarked and we're getting all of the materials and support that we need. They commented on the amount of sanitizing agents and the PPEs that we've got in district. They came in with an expectation, I believe, that we weren't preparing our buildings to have students come. And they walked out knowing that we are making the investments with the money that we have to be prepared to reopen the schools when we address the other three impactful items, that being air quality, that being the distancing, and that being staffing. And so I think they were amazed at how much we have prepared with all of our plans, given all of the comments that have been talked about over the last 2 weeks. We are ramped up, and there's been a lot of energy, and there's been a lot of investment today. And so flipping the switch will be easier when those other three issues are addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrucci. Anyone who thinks that Warwick has not done their due diligence or has thrown in the towel is sadly mistaken, and I would invite them to come and visit us.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Testa.
Thank you. One other thing with the finances, Mr. Ferrucci, this is for you. Dr. Thornton said that the 1.7 has been released, but we have to spend that down by the end of the year, correct?
That is correct.
Right, so if we bought HEPA filters or HEPA things, right, we'd expend that money, and that's fine, right? So come January, if we are able to go back into the buildings, you know, the cost to staff up and all that comes out of us as of right now, right? There's no funds for the other stuff, right?
Right.
So you can't spend it beyond December 31. So essentially, they're giving you this check to here, spend it now, buy stuff. You can't buy people, you gotta buy stuff, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Is there anybody else? Any further comments? Being none, we'll move on. Mr. Ferrucci, discussion update, transportation, regular ed, bus routes review.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to share a document with you folks. This is something that we've tabled a couple of times, going back to August, excuse me. What we wanted to share is a map of the city of each of the school districts, and basically wanted to highlight when we talked about moving the walking distances and being able to trim the numbers of buses. Prior to this coming school year, we would run normally about 63 to 64 regular ed buses. Those are the long 71 passenger buses throughout the city. We came to you in July and said we could run the city on 29 buses if we extend walking distances by a quarter mile. You'll see in a moment the numbers of students that are affected by it and some of the barriers and challenges that we'll be facing. And I wanted the school committee to be conscious of some of the things that we're going to struggle with and that you might hear about in the future. It's not immediate today because of the way we've constructed our students coming back to schools. But when we open up in full in person, it probably will come back for further conversation and discussion. I just wanted to highlight what the issues are, what our resolution would be, and possible actions that we may be able to take over the next 2 to 3 months while the demand and pressure is not on us as how we can go about rectifying that issue. So I need to just take one moment. I believe I got to click on share screen. There we go. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. So the primary effect of the impact of the decision is at the elementary level. The quarter mile ad at the high school and middle school levels doesn't dramatically impact the numbers of students riding buses. It really is in the elementary area. And so what we put together are maps of each elementary school region and have some statistics for consideration. So the first school up is Cedar Hill Elementary School. And as you'll notice, they're going to be all very consistent. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time explaining what we have before us this evening, but then you'll see the consistency from school to school and you can check your zones. So the star on the map is going to be the location of the school. The brownish colored school area is where the students come from to attend that particular school. The grayish color is the 1 mile walking zone distance that's now part of the approved school committee package that happened at the second reading this evening. And then the tannish colored marker right here is our last year walking distance. And you'll see some overlay and you'll see where the growth was in the walking areas. The district had, over the years, developed what they considered concern roads or hazardous roads. And as an example, in front of Scott Elementary School, Centerville Road, students needing to cross over Centerville Road to get to Scott. Because of its width, because of the volume of traffic, that was distinguished as a hazardous road. So even if a child lived 1/10 of a mile away from the school or was on the other side of Centerville Road, they used to be bused. So those are the population of students that are now not on a bus because we're going to adhere to the full 1 mile walking distance. So the next picture is what I've just explained. So visualizing it, the star is in the center of the yellow circle. Okay, the tannish color is where all the students are drawn from. The yellow circle is last year's perimeter for walkers, and then the bluish colored is the add-on of what we're going for the half mile. Now, at Cedar Hill, there are 129 walkers scheduled for the upcoming school year. Of that, 45% have to cross either Cohasset Avenue. So if they live north of Cohasset Avenue, they've got to cross over. If they lived to the eastern side of Post Road, they'd have to cross over Post Road. If they lived in the quadrant between Love Lane and Post Road, even though it's only a tenth or a quarter of a mile away, they had to cross over Love Lane. All of those students currently are now scheduled to be walkers, and the busing would pick them up outside of the purple color. If the school committee deemed that these roads were in fact so hazardous that students should not cross it and wanted to entertain putting buses back in, we would have to pick up approximately 58 students at Cedar Hill to accommodate that request to have them cross either Diamond Hill, Cohasset Avenue, Post Road, and Love Lane. So kind of quickly pan through this, but this is what the colorization is. These are the types of roads that we're talking about that are impacting. And what it really did historically, we had so many folks letting us know that buses were not full. Well, this was one of the reasons. We were picking up, in 4 different zones, 3 different, the 3 zones within the parameters I just described that would normally walk. There may only be 10 or 15 in each designation, but you wanted to pick them up, and we had all those extra buses to do it. We're now scheduling the number of buses for the students who ride straight outside the circles. The next school are in alphabetical order. Greenwood Elementary School, same color coding. As you can see, Greenwood's really landlocked by Main Avenue, Jefferson Boulevard, and Greenwich Avenue. So it really does have a very small footprint for numbers of students that could literally walk without having to cross one of those roads. Whoops. So of the 143 students that are walkers, 45% of those that fall into those crossing those roads. If you wanted to pick them up, there's another 64 students. Similarly, Holloman. You can see Holloman surrounded by Post Road and Warwick Avenue. So anything east or west of the school really gets picked up. Basically, the southern section of the city can walk to Holloman. 70 students walking, 20% only needed, so it's about 14 students. Hoxie Elementary. Whoops. Come on. Come with me. Am I back on Hoxie? Nope, Cedar Hill overshot. Sorry about that. The screen pop jumped on me. Give me a moment. Get there, Greenwood. Holloman, we did. There we go, Hoxie. Come on. Behind me now. There we go. Hoxie, it has a west boundary and a north boundary, West Shore Road and Warwick Avenue. 100 walkers, 35%, would be about 35 students. Lippert Elementary, about 135 students, 40%, so you're looking at about 54 students. Their southern lane would be Sandy Lane, is where we've decided that north of that is pretty clear. Norwood Elementary, we didn't have statistics on this, I apologize. But you can see it's located regarding Elmwood Avenue to its northeast and southern is Post Road. Oakland Beach. About 258 students, 50% would be crossing either West Shore Road or Oakland Beach Avenue itself. So Oakland Beach is about 129 students. Park Elementary, got 90 students, a little over 50% having to cross. Buttonwoods Avenue is a predominant in Long Street. Robinson Elementary. Has its northern roads. We've got West Shore Road, Long Street, and some portion of Post Road. 50% of 150 students would be about 80 students. Scott. As I had pointed out, on Centerville Road, it's a 1/10 of a mile across the road, that whole population to the south and a population to the west. 100% of those students would need to come. It's only 70 students, so it's not a dense population. Just a couple more. Sherman. Sherman is really blocked by Church Avenue and Sandy Lane. And I believe that is, oh, we didn't put the marking on the street, the north-south road. Warwick Avenue. This one's 55% out of 180, so it's about 100 students. Warwick Neck. We got about 90 students that are walking. 65% of them would end up crossing over Warwick Neck Avenue, going down the center of the peninsula, and then Palmer is a very busy street as well. So those two issues would be about 60 students that would be affected by it. And lastly, Wyman. So we're looking at Narragansett Parkway. This one really is landlocked. Fair Street, Post Road, Warwick Avenue. So about 80% of the 172. So that gives us about 138 students from Wyman. So in total, what we're faced with is about 850 students that are now going to be walking, that are going to start crossing some of these roads. In order to accommodate trying to bus those students, and a full-size bus with about 70 passengers on board, so forget about the pandemic, just fully loading buses. We're looking at another 15 buses adding to the fleet if we wanted to accommodate these walkers. And at 15 buses at about $80,000 a year, we're looking at about a $1.2 million investment to bring the buses back. Again, I'm saying this tonight because we have time in front of us to figure out a strategy and determine whether the pockets in the areas are more hazardous than others, and whether we can make accommodation with busing and or reach out to the city and have meetings with the safety committees and come up with safe crosswalks, possibly reinstating more crossing guards and coming up with a plan. Going into next year, if we need the 14 to 15 buses, if we don't start until Christmas time, then we'd probably only be looking about a half of that investment for the current school year. But then you would need to have that fully vested for the following year. So we wanted to just let folks know, get a picture of what we're talking about. I know it didn't resonate when we first had these conversations, when we looked at just statistics, and I think that's what's the worst thing about statistics. Just like we're experiencing in other areas, statistically, everybody can walk a mile. Until you get to the facts of the logic behind it, whether it's safe or not, has anything to do with science. It has everything to do with the facts of the cases we have in front of us. So I wanted to share that so it's not a surprise for anybody in the community, and also know that it's something we can work on over the next couple of months to mitigate the issues that we might be confronted. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Carucci. Questions?
Do I minimize that?
So go to the top, Tony, go to the top menu, it says stop sharing. Take your cursor all the way to the top.
Any questions?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. Mr. Frucci, I think you mentioned, we do have time, so maybe looking into crossing guards. And, I sit here and I look at the presentation, look at the map, and I think this is probably a really good opportunity for, the cities and the school department to work collaboratively to see, how we maybe repaint crosswalks, maybe work collaboratively with the police department and trying to find crossing guards. I know they're like hen's teeth, but I think it may be a good city school collaborative thing.
Absolutely, it's absolutely necessary, and we need to reach out and work with the city to make this happen, because we have to make sure that kids can cross these roads safely. Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Ferrucci. Nicely done.
We will update you as we progress over the next few months. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 7, discussion action, fall athletics. Mr. Ricks. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee.
What would you like to tell us about athletics?
Okay, so just to give you a quick update of what's transpired, the governor and the Department of Health has indicated that they are going to proceed to allow certain sports to take place with the beginning on September 21. The schedules will all be abbreviated schedules, and they've elected to move football and volleyball to what they call the third season in the 4-season plan, which, if I'm correct, is March, April. And that's, we stand before you now. I have a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 with all the athletic directors to go over all the details and some of the different modifications they'll make in some of the sports they're offering, and a full detailed plan on what our expectations will be if we run sports.
What, Mr. Ricks, what sports is the state or the governor, what sports are going to run per the governor and RIL?
Okay, per the governor and our IAL, they will run boys and girls cross country, boys and girls soccer, and field hockey.
Are those things modified? I mean, it seems to me that I've played some of those and they're a little bit close.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to find out tomorrow, Chairwoman Bacchus. I know Massachusetts is going to a different set of rules on how to handle the ball in soccer, and I know that there were some modifications to the number of players on the field for field hockey. But I don't want to speak on that now until I find out officially tomorrow what modifications they're going to tell us took place.
Absolutely. Now, what happened with tennis?
Oh, tennis is on there. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
Tennis, yes.
This is the season for tennis.
Yeah, no, tennis and cross country. They were the first two really to meet the expectations of what the CDC and the governor and everybody wanted. And they recently realized or determined that soccer and field hockey, because they're outdoors, could probably take place.
Okay. So is there anybody else on the committee who has any questions about athletics or anything like that this evening?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Adams?
Just out of curiosity, Mr. Ricks, like, if football, like, I know football kind of has a hefty training schedule, and for those students that play spring sports outside of football, like, are they gonna have to choose between the two, or is that gonna be feasible for them?
My understanding is no. The way they've come up with this 4-season plan, they're trying to make sure every kid has something. That's what was brought, before me, and my understanding of it was so in between that winter season and the spring season, they would add a whole nother season, which I believe again, don't quote me on this, but I think it's March and April. And that would push the spring season back to May, June, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was heartened to see that the governor did not throw in the towel on our kids and is allowing Warwick students to engage in sports no matter what we do, so they aren't punished. So I was very happy to see that. Thank you, Governor Raimondo. I think that you're looking for a vote on sports going forward. And so at this time, I would move approval.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And can I add one other thing, Ms. Marcus?
Please.
Just to give you an update for anybody that may be listening, at this time, middle school sports will be pushed off. It'll be postponed to a later time. They're looking to make some type of modification so the middle schools can all have sports, but there'll be nothing in the fall.
Well,
And
please keep us up to date on that, Mr. Rett.
yes, absolutely. And one other thing, I'm going to have a bunch of stuff that'll need approval at your next meeting.
Certainly.
Thank you
And
very much.
just to parents who may be listening, and students, and to everyone here, I hope that our students will be very, very careful when they are playing sports, because we do not want to see anyone get sick with COVID. And we certainly don't want to lose anyone. So just treat everyone as if they have it, and you'll probably be on the safe side of things. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Sir. Moving on, number 8, bid award, annual city audit, Mr. Ferrucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have before you a recommendation to award a bid. We're piggybacking the bid that the city put out this year for the annual audit. The city auditors come in and validate the data that we report. In past years, this expense has been in the $30,000 range, but given the volume of work necessary for things like OPEB, pension reporting, the complexity of the UCOA reporting, the volume and effort has really skyrocketed. The numbers of firms willing to do this type of work is very small. I think they only had 2 respondents to the bid. The company that had the bid the last 3 years chose not to bid on it based on how much effort they put in over the last 3 years in order to meet the state requirements and the fiscal requirements. I support the city's decision to go with Clifton, Lawson, and Allen, even though the total cost is $80,850. Having us piggyback the city allows us to be transparent with the city, and they are validating our bookkeeping and our reporting. So I seek your approval for the 3-year award. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions about this award?
I have one, I think, Madam Chair.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. Mr. Ferrucci, just to be clear, last year it was a $28,475 spend, and now it's going to 80?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And I can't resist because I do it every year. These are independent auditors, right?
Yes, they are.
They're a third party.
Yes, they are.
And our budget gets audited every year by an independent third party.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank
So
you.
does the city, the entire city. Mr. Gutberg.
Thank you.
At this time, I move approval.
Second.
Are we taking the vote?
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Madam Chair, you're muted.
I had somebody walk in, I'm sorry. This time I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. Number 9, discussion action bid award, school nurse medical supplies. Dr. Conley, how are you?
I'm tired,
I'm
Madam
sorry.
Chair.
You look tired.
As we've all been, thank you for your comments before. We've all been working incredibly hard here in Warwick, and I appreciate your acknowledgement that none of us have thrown in the towel. But yes, this is we did a careful review of the bids that were received for ordering our standard nurse medical supplies, and this is our best recommendation. I request your approval.
Are there any questions? There being none, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Conley.
you. Thank you.
Number 10, discussion update, building committee capital projects, bond phase 2 presentation. Mr. Ferrucci and Mr. Gothberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to kick off with some promotional materials, and then if there's any specific detail questions, Mr. Gothberg is here to assist us. As you're fully aware, 3 years ago, we started the district analysis of what the buildings needed, and we had gone to the city looking for about $80 million. They gave us $40 million. We're underway 2 years into it. We're actually beginning to start organizing our third year of that bond. You'll hear more about that in the near future. However, this evening, I want to talk about the exciting things that we want to accomplish on the next phase. As everybody should be aware, the school committee did hire a consultant to address the high school issues. And so the school committee approved a bond referendum for $56 million to take care of our elementary schools and our middle schools. And as has been discussed this evening already, it couldn't be more timely. What we're proposing to do, a bulk of our work, is to take care of the air quality and HVAC systems at all of our elementary schools. We're using VETS as the model that we will be looking to install in all of our elementary schools for going forward. I wish we could have done this 3 years ago and we would have been able to ride out this pandemic in much better style, but it is what it is and we are here. And so now we're looking for support from the community to make another investment into the schools. We hope they have had a chance to see the investments that we have been doing and can be proud of what we're accomplishing. So I got 2 things to show you quickly tonight. One is a PowerPoint that we would like to put out publicly, distribute, and get out in as many groups as possible over the next 2.5 months leading up to the election in November. And we also have what we did last time around was a handout, which has very specific information on each school. So when this gets out into the community would be able to look up what school my children go to, how will those be affected? And so that you literally can see the kinds of investments we're making in our schools. So I'm very proud to present the collective effort of the building committee, the school committee, and other stakeholders. I'm going to start off with the PowerPoint, so I'd like to share that with you. And then I'll show quickly the handout, which kind of has the breakdown information. And so we'll kick it off. My PowerPoint. There we go. The time is now. We can't emphasize that enough. We're looking at investing $56 million into schools across our district to better serve our community. We have a message from the superintendent. And his message, trying to get that out so that I could show the whole piece. Thank you. His emphasis is passing of the bond for our schools will have a profoundly positive impact on our community. It's vital that all schools have the modern infrastructure and systems necessary to foster good teaching and learning. We are making progress, but we have more work to do to transform our schools into 21st century learning facilities. As I had just mentioned, the current pandemic underscores the urgency of our work. New HVAC systems is the center core for this for our elementary schools and is a critical part of the bond. Our goal, as always, is to ensure that everyone in our school buildings has a safe, protected, and quality learning environment. We've broken it down for folks to see it on a pie chart. $26.8 million of our initiative, over half, is dedicated to what we've been talking about all night, HVAC systems for all of our schools. There is some asbestos abatement work of $2.3 million, and another portion that we've been talking about continuously, the lack of power in our buildings, because back in the 50s and 60s, you didn't have a high demand for a lot of power. And now with all of the pieces of equipment, the technology, et cetera, that's coming into our buildings, everything has a plug and needs to be plugged in. We're looking at $2.6 million in electrical upgrades so we can take care of that. You'll see some pictures when we talk about site work, $3.7 million. And is the final roofing, because we've done considerable amounts of roof throughout the district, 6.5. And then ultimately our exterior work, you'll see pictures of windows and the like. I think everybody will nod and say, I know what they're talking about when they see our pictures in a moment. So you see the pie of where we're looking to invest these resources. Site work, 3.7. We're breaking it down to curbing, paving, and sidewalks. And just about every school has this type of driveway, walkways that we've been concerned about. We want to address those issues. The schools that will receive investments in there, Greenwood, Howman, Lippitt, Norwood, Park, Sherman, Warwick Neck, the Welk at JBF, Wyman, and Drum Rock. And we put an asterisk next to Drum Rock because we do realize that Drum Rock has been under conversation about how it might be incorporated into the high school model. So if the bond is passed, we would delay those Drum Rock investments until a decision is made as to what is going to happen with our high schools. So you'll see that asterisk wherever Drum Rock's noted. It's that they're in, but we would delay those decisions until we know what's happening with high schools. 3.7 with all that site work. The school's approach will be safe and it'll be pleasing, and the students will be very happy, I think, to utilize it. Roofing, we're looking at 5 more roof replacements. Again, Drum Rock has got the asterisk, Holloman, Stock, Warwick Neck, and Windman. Exteriors, we've got doors, we've got windows, we have these types of issues throughout our whole district. All elementary schools and both middle schools and Welk will see great enhancements when it comes to the windows. It's going to be visible to the outside, so the natural light. They will be energy efficient, so when we go to heat or air condition, etc., it will reduce our costs over the long term. Asbestos abatement, the only projects we got remaining is at Windman Middle School. This is a significant investment in Windman, but it'll address the significant numbers of issues. Heating and air conditioning, $26.8 million. All of our elementary school systems will be replaced. They will all operate like we experienced at Veterans. And there is an upcoming conversation in the near future about how to take care of Windman If the high school Pilgrim tollgate is separate for long-term conversation, there is money in the current bond that we would be talking to you about in the near future. But if that can happen, then we would have everything having HVAC systems, state of the art, other than the two high schools, and the two high schools will be addressed either through renovation or replacement. That decision has not been made yet. Electrical upgrades, again, all elementary schools, Warwick Vets, Windman, Drumrock, and then the only investment we need to make is some electrical work at the Career and Tech Center. That's separate and apart from the high school. It's a standalone facility. We know it's going to be the Career and Tech, and so we move it forward. And then lastly, some minor plumbing. As you can notice throughout our district, we've got some plumbing that's obsolete. We've got classrooms with pipes without fixtures. Those will all get addressed within the elementary schools and again, the middle schools as proposed. So we're rallying the troops. Together, we can ensure that the students, faculty, and the community get the building upgrades necessary to foster good teaching and learning. And we're looking for everybody to make a commitment to support this necessary work. And I believe the referendum is November 3rd, but I will check that date because I heard November 4th. If that's an error, we're going to fix that before we post this on the website. What we had done last time was solicit folks to get out in front of groups, whether it's electronically or physically. This becomes a tool that they can bring to foster conversation with the community. And then I just want to share the one other document so that folks will know. This is the breakdown. There we go. Whoops. Oh, I closed it by mistake. Bear with me, please. There we go. That's better. This is a handout that we developed that breaks out each of the schools and who's getting what. So this is a fourth-fold type piece of paper, but electronically we can see the schools. Elementary schools, as an example, Cedar Hill. Total investment we're proposing for Cedar Hill, $3.2 million. Exterior repairs, close to $1 million. An HVAC system of $2.1 million. $100,000 in electrical upgrades, and finally about $24,000 in plumbing. This was very, very educational for folks. When we got out in front of the PTAs and said, what's my school getting? It became a great point to have a dialogue with folks, and they were able to relate the need within their school, and then they also could see the need throughout the district. I think it generated a lot of good conversation, and I hope it generated the support that we're looking for. And then the second page of this are all the other elementary schools. So every school will have how much we're looking in investing and what types of projects. So those are the two tiers of the level of community information. We're really excited about this. We do realize that the pandemic has created some fiscal concerns and financial concerns in the households, but we're really hoping that folks can see past the next year and realize that these types of investments are what our students need long-term, and anything that comes at us in the near future, we'll be prepared to be able to take that on. I would just ask Steve if I missed anything, or if there's a point of anything that he would like to mention this evening before we ask questions. Mr. Gottberg?
It's critical, I think, as we all know. And in addition to just the HVAC, the exterior repairs to the buildings themselves, I don't think you can do one without the other. I think that's a combined thing. Without that, it won't work. And the site work absolutely needs to be done. It's atrocious throughout the district.
Thank you, Mr. Gottberg. I want to thank the building committee and all the other stakeholders that have participated with us in developing these plans. And I think it's a worthwhile investment for consideration. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrucci. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. Mr. Ferrucci, once we settle on that date to make sure the election date is correct.
Oh, it's the 3rd.
It is?
November 3rd, Tuesday, November 3rd.
So we want to put this on our website, right? And then share it in any way, shape, or form that we can, because in the COVID environment, getting in front of people will be difficult. We should also reach out to the PTAs and PTOs. I don't know if they're having virtual meetings, and share that with them. So I want to thank you for all that work. And I think, I mean, some people may say, well, what are we putting money into these old buildings for? I think that's a false premise. I think the buildings are solid. I mean, they're old, but they're solid buildings, and you can modernize the interior of a building. City Hall is a perfect example of an old building that's been modernized. So no one's talking about tearing that down. So I think this is money well spent, and I think it does bring what goes on inside of those buildings up into 21st century. So I hope it passes. Thank you.
As do I. Thank you, Mr. Testa. Anyone else? Okay, moving along. Number 11, discussion action, contract award, curriculum, grant-funded online readers. Ms. Amelot.
Hi, thank you again for your comments. Yes, it's been a long summer, and I just want to thank all the educators at work. So thank you, Ms. Box, for your comments about working hard this summer. And we are bringing forward some ESSER funding that teachers have helped me select. And the first one is for RAS Plus. It's an online program to give level readers to our young readers as they're at home. So it's for our K-2 teachers, our special education teachers, and our reading teachers to be able to assign level texts.
Terrific. I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 12, discussion action, contract award, curriculum, grant-funded digital foreign language program.
Yes, these are some e-texts for our modern world language so that they have enough copies for every student. This is allowing us to have, so they don't share. So these are e-texts that will be accessible for this year to support distance learning.
Thank you very much. At this time, are there any questions? Being none, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. Number 13, discussion action, contract award, curriculum grant-funded iReady Reading and Digital Mathematics Program. Mrs. Amelot.
Yes, this is for our K-8, all of our K-8 students. This allows for lessons, online lessons to be assigned by teachers, but it also has a MyPath learning, so it supports students and really giving them instruction right at their level based on the diagnostics. So this is to support, we did use this this spring and teachers were very pleased with the product.
Thank you. Are there any questions? There being none, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you very
you.
much. 14, discussion action, contract award, curriculum, grant-funded, CAMI district license. Ms. Amelot.
Yes, CAMI allows teachers and students to actually make a PDF and write on it and annotate it and send it back. So really in the world in our remote learning situation, this is really, teachers really wanted this and asked for this. So thank you.
I bet. That sounds awesome. Any questions?
Madam Chair, just one. Ms. Amelot, are these grant funded from the $1 million grant that we got? Is that where this come from?
These are from the ESSER funds. So these were the almost $3 million allocation.
Yep, thank you.
You okay, Mr. Tessa?
Oh, that's not me. I think that's someone else. I'm not coughing.
Oh. Sorry. At this time, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 15, discussion action, contract award, first student transportation 2020, 2021, proposed amendment to contract. Mr. Ferrucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Because of the uncertainty of our scheduling and some contractual provisions within the first student about pricing, we're seeking your approval to negotiate a fixed cost contract for the school bus year for this school year only, recognizing the future needs of what the district may be. I'm asking that Mr. Penius and the superintendent and I engage in conversation and come back to you by next Tuesday with the possibility of a recommendation of a fixed contract that might be kind of unique given the pandemic situation we face.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrucci. That sounds like a big job. If you need more time, take it. Are there any questions? There being none, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you very much. Number 16, discussion action, contract award, grants, non-public allocations of ESSER grant. Dr. Cecil.
Yes, good evening again. What I'm coming to you tonight with, part of the ESSER, the first round of ESSER, we were obligated, just as we are with Title II, Title IV-A, is a fair share portion to give to the non-publics. They have their lists of things that they're ordering or want. We have to do the ordering. And it's anywhere from PPE to technology to a lot of the same curriculum materials that we're ordering, a lot of the same software, e-textbooks, et cetera, et cetera. Rather than having to come to you with each individual item, which will take forever, and the schools are chomping at the bits to get their things because they can't order them. We have to do the ordering, which is massive on our part. What we're coming to you tonight with is an amount that each school was allocated by the state. Their plan was approved by RIDE. Their spending on those items was approved by RIDE. So we're asking for your approval tonight for us to spend that dollar amount for those schools so that we're ready to order. We have everything, we've spent the last 2 weeks getting the orders ready to just push out once we get your approval. But we have Hendricken for $114,117.02. Pathways gets $5,351.50. Rocky Hill, $44,402.95. Sargent Center, $10,847.63. St. Kevin's, $24,154.05. St. Peter, $22,273.79. And St. Rose, $21,550.62. So with your approval tonight, we can get all those orders out tomorrow for all the things that they need.
Thank you, Dr. Cecil. That being the case, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Madam Chair,
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0.
Yep.
You're gonna have a busy day tomorrow, Dr. Cecil.
Madam Chair, can I ask Dr. Seisel one quick question?
Well, okay.
Thank you. Dr. Seisel, these are essentially pass-through funds, right?
Yeah, they are.
They weren't our money. We're not like losing this money to the private schools. This is just,
No.
it flows through us. That's all, right?
Right.
It flows through. We were given one large allocation,
Right.
and from that, X amount got pulled off the top to give to the private schools, and then the remaining funds, which was the 1.3, is what we used to buy the computers, the Chromebooks, the hand sanitizer, PPE for Dr. Conley, all the curriculum materials that Mrs. Amelot talked about tonight. Every department from that original plan that the district, when they went into their subgroups and came up with what they would need in order to open schools on a hybrid model, face-to-face or distance learning, we took from that and spent the 1.3 on that. This new money that we have to spend by December 30th has different rules attached to it, and it's really focused on the buildings and getting buildings open for face-to-face. So, and we don't have to give any of that money to the non-publics. It's a different pot of money.
Thank
So
you.
it will be spent differently.
Thank you. And I apologize for adding like an hour to this meeting with all my questions. Thank you.
Lucky we don't have a hook. Okay. Thank you, everyone who worked on the ESSA grant and who won this for the district. It's making a huge difference for us. Moving on, number 17, discussion action contract award maintenance elevator repairs. The elevator has been down for many weeks. Mr. Oliver, what's the proposal?
I'm asking for your approval on this contract award. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What are they gonna need to do, Mr. Oliver?
Say that again.
What do they need to do to fix that elevator?
I'm waiting for a part to come in right now, and then it will be repaired as soon as it comes in.
Okay. What's holding it up? The pot?
Ordering.
COVID.
Okay. Well, I move approval.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. Get that part and get that fixed for,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Number 18, discussion action, contract award, secondary NEASC annual membership. Superintendent?
Mr. McCaffrey, I believe.
Oh, Mr. McCaffrey is here.
Madam Chair, this is the annual membership dues for both high schools at Pilgrim and Tollgate. The accreditation process is intended to protect our schools, employees, and students. It guarantees that the particular high school is teaching to its students at a level that is acceptable nationally. When the students acquire diplomas from accredited high school, they can be assured that colleges will accept it. I would recommend passing, continuing the membership dues for NEASC. It's vital to the success of both of our high schools.
Thank you, Mr. McCaffrey. I have to agree with you, and I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. Number 19, discussion action, contract award, special services, district position. Dr. Conley.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I worked out a contract with Dr. Feldman. It's been some time since we've actually had an official contract with him. I'm very pleased with the terms that we came up with. Happy to answer any questions you have and respectfully request your approval.
Are there any?
Sorry, I just want to add Dr. Feldman is an invaluable resource for any year, but especially this year.
Completely understood.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, who's that? Oh, Superintendent, hi.
I also echo, he's been indispensable. We can call him anytime and he responds to us immediately. He's been fantastic.
Thank you, he is. So I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 20, discussion action, request for one special education teacher at Tollgate. Dr. Conley.
So this request was brought forward by Jen Livesey at Tollgate. It's really a scheduling conundrum that we have at Tollgate with the confines of the students in CTC and trying to make sure that we have special educators scheduled into all the core content areas per the teacher's contract. So I agreed with his request, and it was supported by Dr. Thornton as well, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions about the request for special ed teacher at Colgate, for CPC? There being none, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Cobden? Cobden? Motion passes 4-0. Ms. Cobden out of the room.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 21, discussion action contract awards 1 through 12 consent calendar as presented. Is there anything people would like to remove from this? Question? Anything? There being none, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. 4-0. Ms. Cobden is out of the room.
I think she disconnected.
Oh. Or it disconnected her, like it did to me earlier.
This happened to me all throughout this meeting.
Yeah.
Keep getting disconnected from the internet.
It's awful.
Yeah.
I would recommend that you talk to, Nathan, I would recommend that you talk to our new technology director about that problem. Maybe he can give you some advice. Item K, future meetings. The monthly school committee meeting for September is next Tuesday, a week from tonight, September 15th at 2020. And there will be an achievement subcommittee meeting Wednesday, October 7th, 2020 at 4 p.m. That's October 7th. And does anybody else have any meetings or anything like that we missed? Dr. Thornton, is there anything?
Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Very good. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Be well, all.
Night, everybody.
Soon. Night, night.